For the last few years, I got so much into samplers that I kind of neglected keeping up with the latest trends in the world of synthesis. And, oh boy, that was a mistake.
What is up, Greedy Guts? It's your boy, Big Umami, and as you may know already, I love samplers. That's what I do on this channel, mainly. But today, I decided to spit the mighty YouTube algorithm straight in the face. Today, we're gonna talk about wavetable synthesis. And not even on a hardware synth, just straight up, wavetable synthesis theory on a software synth.
So, what exactly is a wavetable? Well, wavetable synthesis is a technique based on the periodic reproduction of different single-cycle waveforms, grouped together and laid out in what we call a wavetable.
If you need a refresher on what single-cycle waveforms are, I made a video about how to use them to get any cheap sampler to sound like a synth.
Anyway, single-cycle waveforms are basically very short samples. There are ways to group these short samples together and create a longer audio file that can then be imported as a wavetable, but to be honest, it's a very long and drawn-out process. It's much better to just draw them in the editor. I'm using Vital, which is honestly the best free synth out there. I'll leave a link down below so you can go get it. Once you're done drawing your waves, you can use a modulator like an envelope or an LFO to cycle through them. This means that you get a constantly changing sound, which is way more interesting than a static waveform. And wavetable synths like Vital use digital interpolation between the waveforms in order to make the transitions between them as smooth as possible. This, by the way, creates entirely new waveforms. If you find a sound that you like, you can stop modulating between the waveforms and just settle on the sweet spot that you found.
Anyway, once you accept the simple premise that single-cycle waveforms are basically just samples, then you start to see that there is a whole world of real-life sounds that can be magically brought into the wavetable realm. Basically, any sound that can be recorded can be imported into a wavetable.
In fact, you can pretty much load any sample into Vital. There are a few best practices to get the best possible results, however. First of all, it's better to use single notes. If you are working at 48 kHz like I am, you should use an F-sharp 0. If you're working at 44.1, you should use an F0. Also, it's better if you use dry sounds, nothing that messes with the face of a sound, so no effects ideally, like no chorus, no flanger, no phaser, no reverb, etc. Let's look at this bright electric piano note, for example. You can see that with the passage of time, the volume goes down and these little creases get smoothed out, which means that the harmonic content is much richer at the very start than it is at the end. And zooming in, you can also see the single cycles starting and ending. When we load this sample in Vital, all of these cycles get cut singularly and they get put into a wavetable. If you scroll through the wavetable, you can get the entire range of sonic character, from the very bright start to the very dull and quiet end. Now we can assign an envelope or an LFO to go through the wavetable. We can get something very close to the original sound, or something else entirely.
Needless to say, this technology is just incredible. It gives you access to a whole range of sounds that cannot ever be created using just analog oscillators, going from very realistic to very ethereal. And you can get all the timbral quality of a real-life instrument, but with full control over its envelope. You can stretch it, you can change it completely. And that's why I call it sampling on steroids. It might be a wrong characterization, but that's what it feels like to me. You can, for example, get a very realistic piano sound that has infinite sustain, doesn't loop on its sample, and it has a very small footprint. In fact, that's exactly what a company like Roland does on its machines with their own technology called LA synthesis. Have you ever noticed that on a machine like the MC11, for example, if you load up a piano patch and you press a note and just keep pressing it, the sound just goes on forever? Well, that's because Roland uses a very clever mix of samples and wavetables. So the very first short burst of sound is actually a sample, and then everything else is basically just a wavetable that can sustain into infinity. That's super clever, isn't it? Now, when importing samples into wavetables, the first thing that people are going to tell you is that you should import single note sounds, and that makes sense. If you import a chord, or even worse, an atonal sort of sound, the machine won't be able to tell where the single cycles, start and end, and therefore it won't be able to interpret the pitch of that sound exactly right. Especially if you cycle through that wavetable with an LFO or an envelope, you will get some, let's just say, very interesting results. But I do like to live dangerously, and I do break this rule quite a lot, actually. So if I find any sound that I like, I actually just import it and play around with it and see what happens. And I get experimental, and sometimes I actually get some really cool sounds. And maybe it only works with a very specific range in the wavetable. Maybe it only works with one waveform in the whole wavetable. Just trust your ear and a tuner. Yeah, a tuner really, really helps.
Anyway, here's some sounds that are made out of unusual sources.
And finally, here's a tune that I made using only wavetable synthesis. So that's it for today. I know it's quite different from what I usually do, but I'm trying to expand my horizons, and sometimes, just working on samplers can get quite... Anyway, hopefully I explained the whole thing clearly enough and I didn't make a fool of myself. by saying some stupid If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, or go to my bigumami.com page to get some sweet sample packs. And yeah, it's been great. I love you, and see you soon. Yeah, man. Bye.